Well, alrighty. So we've got our auger all into place. Got our grease lines all hooked back up. We've folded it in and out a couple of different times just to get the grease worked into that grease ring. Now, what we're getting ready to do now is we are getting ready to put the vertical auger in. Kaz just dropped off a bunch of parts here, which we'll get into that in a minute. Now this vertical auger has to be timed with the unloading auger, and we could show you a couple pictures of how that's supposed to go. The start of the flights from the one to the other has to be off about 90 degrees from each other. So in order to time that, what I've done is I have pulled the unloading auger off of the stub drive shaft back in that 90-degree elbow. We've got that pulled out. So we've got our boot still off, we've got our bearing unbolted, and I pulled that auger out off of that stub shaft. Before we go much further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up that little bit of rust that's on the side of the drain vent. Going to run a wire wheel up on there, clean that off, get a little bit of primer on it, some paint, so on. Over on the bench, I have the, well, it's just a bearing box, but it's got a beveled gear on the bottom of it. We're going to rebuild this before we put it back on, because if something goes wrong in that guy there, we're going to have to take everything all back off of it in order to get back in there. So I have to be careful not to do too much talking. We've got to actually show the work that's getting done. I've got one viewer that can't adjust to, he can't comprehend things enough to know what and how we are describing things. He can't picture anything in his mind. So being that he's got a Mickey Mouse brain, we have to show some more of this work getting done. Therefore, we're going to really be slowing these videos down to the point that someone with a really low IQ will be able to understand what's going on. So instead of me saying that I'm going to climb up that ladder, use that wire wheel there on the grinder, we're just going to have to actually show you how it's done and explain several things and do several things as we go along. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll show you how this gets done with this Milwaukee grinder. Now we're going to spray this with some primer. This is primer in an aerosol can. So we're going to shake this up really well. So we're going to make you watch this for 20 seconds while we shake it up, because we have to explain to that one particular viewer that you need to shake the can really well so that it mixes up accordingly. So now we've got that primer on there. We're gonna let that dry, of course, and then throw some paint on that quick. Now this is the lower part of the housing of that charge housing. We've got a bracket bolted to it. This is what we used to get it down out of there with the forklift. We've got a piece of rectangular tubing welded to this piece of angle iron, and that is bolted to the bottom of the housing. So we'll get that off of there, then we can set this down on the bench, and we're going to rebuild that. The reason why we're going to rebuild it is because we don't want this to fail 2 years from now and have to take it all apart again. So if we take it all apart now, we might save ourselves some time in the near future. I went ahead and got a new shaft as well. Just I kind of worried about the splines being slightly wore on that, and being that we're going to be putting this all back together with basically new parts. Last summer, Kaz replaced the unloading auger. So that whole unloading auger and this outer portion of the auger tube from their back was replaced. Now it doesn't look like a new one, but it is a brand new tube. And the reason why they replaced it is because the end was all wore out. It was all paper thin, and the boot that bolts to the end really didn't have much for what it could bolt to, and the bearing that's on the end of the auger, there's two 10mm bolts that hold that in there. That was all tore out of it. I had welded on it a couple times. So the only old part to this auger is that elbow right there, which that's all pretty thick material, but that is original. So what we're going to be replacing is the vertical auger, the shaft for it, and we're going to put the bin augers in it too. Now I was questioning whether or not this vertical auger ever got replaced, and it obviously has not been replaced before. You can see the thickness in this old auger compared to the new one. There's quite a bit of a difference there. I mean, you can look at the actual end. We're about, we're maybe 3/16. I wouldn't say that's 1/4 inch. Maybe it is 1/4, but we're down to about an eighth of an inch. And we're also starting to ripple on the ends. You could see the fatiguing all the way down through the auger. So we should be able to increase our unloading time a little bit. And then we have new bin augers in them 2 boxes there. And then we've got some panels here that will go in the trough for those augers. If you recall, in an earlier part of this video or the prior one, we had some holes that were just getting wore into that. So let's go ahead and take this bracket off of here. We'll disassemble this housing. We've got new bearings, new shit. I already told you all that. New seals and whatever. We'll get that all in there. And then we could put our auger up in, put this guy up in there, and so on and so forth. Hey Jared, come here.
What?
You got a good light. What is in that grease?
Shavings.
Yeah, there's a little metallic in that grease. So someone has been getting an adequate amount of grease in there, but for whatever reason, there's some metallic shavings in there. But yeah, just a precaution to change these bearings. However, they would probably go for a long time, but yeah. Okay, so we have new parts going back in. Shims, shaft, bearings, seals, snap rings, the bushing, and everything else. Now, the shaft, the new shaft, I'm not sure if you guys could see in this, but that old shaft does have some wear to it. The splines are wore back about 30%. The camera might not even show that, but the shaft, oh, let's see, how much was that? The shaft was $132. It cost $308 altogether to do this little preventative rebuild. Now, when this goes back together, there's a spring that goes on this bushing, like, I just dropped it on the floor. Alright, so we picked that back up. So there's a spring that goes on this bushing. This spring that was on the old bushing. Does anybody know why this spring is supposed to be on there? Go ahead and leave a comment down below if you know why or what purpose this spring does on this bushing. Now, the guy that needs everything explained to him as we work on stuff, he already knows the answer, I'm sure. So I'm going to be looking for that one particular viewer to answer in the comment section as to what purpose this spring does on this bushing. So we're going to go ahead and get it together here. I need two hands to get this spring on there like it is on this old one. We could probably reuse this one again, and I'm not sure if that bushing was compromised at all. It does have a little bit of a groove in it, but we'll go ahead and put a new one in there. The spring has probably been compromised some, but at any rate, let's get it together here.
I'm gonna cut that off.
Here.
Just cut it.
Okay, so we have this all together. We're just going to, of course, load it with grease. And then we can get that bracket bolted back up to it, and then we'll set the auger on top of it, and we'll put it up through that charge housing. So we'll let it load with the adequate amount of grease, and then we'll, yeah, all right. That's going to take quite a bit to pump into there, but we'll let that do its thing. Grease gun is actually out of grease, so we'll have to load it with grease. blue one? Oh. Okay. So we've got this about 72.5% of the way up in there. We have obviously pulled the fork out of the tube because of the angle that that's on. I probably should have put that tube on a little more of an angle to be underneath it, but I didn't. We've got a strap in there right now, and then we're going to very carefully just keep inching its way up in there. I'm probably going to have to eventually bring this auger around this way so that I can get into the inspection door, so that we can kind of move that the shaft up in that elbow around, so that we can get that mated up to that vertical auger. But we'll just have to carefully take our time getting that up in there. It's going to take a little bit, but just goes with the job here. So this is what you heard. You heard this thing here in the background. They were doing a service on it. Now they're going to pull it outside and wash it. This guy's got himself one of these sweatshirts. Did you go on the website and order that?
What?
Did you go on the website and order that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so there's what we have there. That's in gray. All right, so let's get to finishing that.
Oh shit, proof. Huh? Yeah.
All right, so we have swung the auger out, and what we're going to be able to do now is I undid the bearing up on that end, and I didn't know this auger was in 2 sections. Only the big combines are in 2 sections. So we have another hanger bearing right here, and the 2 auger sections go together. So we've got a short section, and then we've got a long section. Now this has only got the 18.5 foot auger on it, but if we had a 21.5 foot auger on, this auger that went from here out would have to be a little longer. So we had to break it right here. We've got the auger pulled out the end, and we've got this bottom auger pulled up here. And now what we're going to be able to do, if I can step on over here, like so. Ooh, catch me, Christian, if I fall. All right, so now what we have is this right angle do-a-majiggy right there, and we've got that vertical charge auger. You can just about see it right there. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to bring that charge auger up through, and being that we've got this cover off of the auger, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to ever so gently reach in there and turn that right angle guy to line up the auger and to kind of move that auger right back and forth. So what we're going to do is jack it up in there. We thought we could kind of hit it and get it, but we weren't able to do that. So now we are ready to do it the correct way. All right, so we have this all up in there now. I just got to put the bolts in and drop the forklift out from underneath it. But we've got the auger is up on this gearbox here. We can just ever so gently turn that, and that is right where it needs to be. So we'll get our bolts in, and we can get this forklift out of the way, get our ratchet strap off, and then we'll drop this bottom auger down in, get that lined up, and then screw the top auger down in and do the same thing with that to get that all back together. So, yeah. All right, so we have the vertical auger in there. The lower portion of that drive assembly is bolted to the sump. We now have the first auger section slid down onto the shaft in that elbow, and we've got that timed accordingly. So what you want is that leading edge of that vertical auger. When that dumps, you want that 90 degrees from the starting leading edge on that horizontal auger. So in other words, just as soon as that auger gets up to the top, you want that other one coming around to sweep the material that is pushed up to it on a full stroke. So we're going to get some silicone on that cover there, get that covered up. Then we're going to go up to that end, release our clamp, get our auger to come back in, and then that comes together with a splined shaft. Actually, we've got to put the hanger bearing on that support that's inside that cover, then slide that auger down. So we're going to get that cover sealed up, put our bearing on, slide that auger in, and then we'll be able to fold this auger around and continue with the rest of the assembly. Do we need to show you guys how we put silicone on and everything, or can you kind of draw that little part of a video in your mind. Or, you know, maybe I need to do the whole drug out process of putting 4 nuts on silicone in the cover and so on and so forth. Or we can just tell you what we're doing and move from one step to the other. I think we'll just do it in a little more of a rapid succession here. Well, alrighty. So I don't know how long this video is. We're going to cut it right here. And then we'll move into this next video with kind of finishing this up. So we've got to get some paint on there yet. I've got to finish putting together the drive assembly on the bottom of that charge housing, and we'll get on with the rest of it. So with that being said, that is gonna do it for this video. We can get that auger folded back, and then we'll roll into the next segment here of getting this all back together, and then we can work on the floor of the grain bin. So that's gonna do it, folks. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you at the next one.